Hello everyone. My presentation is on RNG in games, particularly when it comes to competitive gaming and speedrunning. To start, I briefly wanted to talk about how competitive gaming first began. It's basically been around since the first games were made, but the first organized gaming tournament was in 1972, called Intergalactic Space War Olympics, and was held at Stanford University's Artificial Intelligence Laboratory. And competitive gaming only became more popular with the release of gaming consoles like the Atari 2600 and the NES. And these gaming competitions often range depending on the game, like who can get the highest score, who can survive the longest, or who can be the fastest, which is where speedrunning comes in. Speedrunning is exactly what it sounds like. It's playing a game really fast. There's different categories of speedrunning, like regular and tool assisted, 100% run and a minimalist run, but for the most part, it's just doing things as fast as you can. And it makes sense. As humans, we are always comparing ourselves to each other of who can be the fastest at running, swimming, biking, racing, you name it. Speed is often equivalent to success, and so it's no surprise we move the same mentality to games. The first, it's speculated that the first speed run was Montezuma's Revenge for the Atari 2600 by Daryl D.P. Sampson. Uh, the speed run was recorded and confirmed by other players, but the need to document accurate speed runs fueled the creation of speedrunning websites like Speed Demos Archive and GDQ. And uh, even games started being made with speed in mind, with the co-creator of Sonic the Hedgehog, Yuji Naka, saying that the concept of the game was made from attempting Mario speedruns. So so many people today are speedrunning games trying to be on the top of the leaderboards, but there's one thing that often gets in the way, RNG. So we've talked about RNG a lot in class, but I guess for a quick refresher, RNG stands for Random Number Generator, and it's been in games since the beginning of time. Uh, some of the first games involve dice and cards, which are basically random number generators. And in the terms of video games, it can take many different forms, from determining, like, just from random enemies appearing or what events happen in your game. Uh, One example I put is Undertale, which assigns every run with a fun number value from 1 to 100. And depending on the number your run gets, it will trigger certain NPC encounters or events, with some of them being harder to get than others. So it's hard to find a game that doesn't involve RNG in some sort of way. Uh, so how does RNG specifically affect speedrunning? Well, with games like Mario, everything's pretty much planned. Like the landscape stays the same, the enemies spawn in the same places, and the items you get are usually guaranteed, making it so it's easier to speed run and play the same levels over and over again and get better at perfecting everything. While other games like Minecraft have RNG built into the core of the game, where not only are the enemies randomized, but the world itself is different every time, meaning you can't predict or become very precise at one stage. So it's every time you play it, it's different. Uh, one, and that's because this game runs off of seed generation. Short definition of what seed generation is. I found an article by The Gamer that explains it as each time the game boots up or a soft reset, a number known as a seed is plugged in. The seed gets its name because all the other pseudo random numbers grow out from the seed. And since true random numbers cannot be generated, any given seed will always output the same numbers in the same order. What this means is that seeds can be shared with other people, and that other person can get the same world. Uh, However, depending on what they do, Certain things will be slightly different depending on how they play, but for the most part, it's the same world. One example I've chosen is Spelunky, which has a unique level generation system with a mix of RNG and design that allows a unique every time while still having great flow. Short explanation of how it works is that each level it works from a 4x4 grid and will choose randomly from the top which one's deemed the entrance and will randomly go left, right, or down until it can't go down anymore, and then it will deem the last room as the exit, making it so there's always a guaranteed path or solution that the player can go through without needing any extra items. And the rest of the rooms are treated as extras, which will sometimes require extra items to enter. And sometimes these extra rooms can be very beneficial to a run, or it can really harm a run, depending on what the player does. And then in addition, a script rolls a die for each tile to see if it places a monster, treasure, or another object. And there's shopkeepers that also have different items every time you run. And the creator of Spelunky, Derek Yu, said that he wanted to force the player to make difficult decisions and experience both the satisfaction of choosing correctly and the regret of choosing poorly, meaning that he wanted players to question their decisions because if they die, they can't run through the same seed again. Another example I've chosen is Pokemon. Pokemon relies on an RNG seed system for their game, but they also rely on RNG for a lot of different things, like encounters with other Pokemon. So you have a random chance of running into certain Pokemon, and there's also a random chance that the Pokemon you run into is shiny. And then RNG is also used to determine the amount of damage you could do with certain moves. With certain moves being like having a higher accuracy of like 100%, while other moves only have an accuracy of 50% or 30%. And sometimes that can make or break a run. And for my last example, I chose Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Super Smash Bros. Has a lot of RNG in it. First of all, there's stage hazards that can get in the way. One map I chose as an example is Warfare, which has lava everywhere. They have lava walls. The stage at some parts dips into the lava. So if you're not paying attention, you can fall into it, get a lot of damage, get KO'd. It can really hurt you. And then also if you have items on, items aren't always balanced. And so if your opponent gets a golden hammer or an item like Gus Bellows, it could drastically change your chances of winning. And there's also characters that have their own RNG moves, like Luigi, Mr. Game & Watch, and Hero. Hero's been a really touchy subject and has even gotten the title of the RNG character because his moveset's so unpredictable. Because basically he has a list of spells that he can cast, and they all have different ranges of how much damage or the effects they can do. And the list constantly changes and refreshes. So sometimes it will have a good list and sometimes it will be like a bad list. In this top clip, I showed a part of a tournament that basically shows how he got one move, which kind of like self-destructs him. And then right afterwards, he was able to put his opponent to sleep and then just KO him right away. And then in this bottom clip, I show Mr. Game & Watch and how his RNG move works. His move's called Judge. And basically it rolls a number between 1 and 9, with 9 being able to almost like instantly KO your opponent. And sometimes that can just like completely change how like tournaments work. So RNG, the good and bad. RNG has always been built into games, and while it can be annoying and terrible for speedruns and competitions, it allows for a lot of replayability. In the case of Spelunky, while you're getting better at the game's mechanics, you're still being put into new situations that force you to think and weigh your options. And even in games like Super Smash Bros., the RNG can allow there to be more fun when playing with friends. You can be put in crazy situations, and the saves from those crazy situations can feel much more dramatic and amazing. And each time you play, you're put in an unpredictable experience, and you can feel more accomplished when you beat the odds. And of course, in competitive situations, sometimes RNG can feel cheap and it can make players feel like they were cheated out of a win. And some people feel like you don't have to be the best player. Sometimes if you just get like a garbage seed or if you're fighting a RNG character like Hero, it almost feels like you're destined to fail. Uh, and that you don't have to be a great player to win. And some people win just because of like dumb luck. So I feel like because of all these feelings, RNG gets a really bad rap because people feel like it's the cause of all their failed speed runs and lost competitions. Um, but today, there's a lot more rules to prevent these failings from arising. For example, in speedrunning, you could speed run for particular seeds called like set seed runs, and it can make a speed run easier because then you can just speed run almost like the exact same level over and over and over again. And for competitions, they now have added like rules to prevent RNG from fully taking over. Like in how a lot of Smash Bros. Tournaments, they won't allow hazards or items. And even in some of them, they ban certain characters because they feel like they're too overpowered or unpredictable. So, conclusion and personal thoughts. As I mentioned before, I like RNG has been in games since they were made, so I feel like it would be hard to like completely remove it from gaming. And besides, I feel like RNG with no RNG in games, they would become very boring and they would lose a lot of their replayability. So for the average gamer, RNG can make your gaming experience really fun. And besides, like I mentioned before, there are ways to work around RNG using specific seeds or making rules to prevent RNG from fully taking over. And now there's even games that are trying to give more control to the players. Like in Super Smash Bros., you can control what items you can get. And even in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, you can customize your item boxes, which can make like races more fair or that there isn't like overpowered items. But it can also give the average player more fun by doing chaotic races like only bullet bills or only blue shells. So even though I feel like RNG can be frustrating at times, I feel like without it, games would become very bland. And I think more games should just give more control to the player so that they can choose how they want their experience to be. So for my gaming demo, I chose Spelunky 2, and I was going to show a normal run versus a seeded run. So I already have it open. Uh, I was just going to play it with no audio, just in case.
That's fine, because usually the audio is too loud.
Uh, so for a normal run, this is World 1, Level 1. So,
We cannot see Spelunky 2. We just see
oh,
your
you can't?
slide
Ah,
deck.
darn it.
Yeah.
I have to share.
Yeah.
Ah, darn it. Well, thanks for telling me. So I'm not just talking and you can't see anything. Can you see Spelunky 2 now?
Yes.
Okay. So this is World 1, Level 1.
Okay, we're just seeing a title screen here. I don't think we're actually seeing the game yet.
Ah, darn it.
I've got the graphics and audio title up.
Ah, darn it. For me, I'm playing it. Oh, this sucks. Uh, Is it just choppy and slow?
No, no, no. It's just a single slide. It's like it's not showing the other the game itself.
That's weird.
Can you share the whole your whole screen?
That's what I thought I was doing
Go
originally.
go ahead and shut down the share and then kick it in one more time.
Okay.
I mean, like actually shut it down. So,
I need to exit the game first.
oh, okay.
It wouldn't show me.
Yep.
Okay. And then I'm
And now we're
showing.
out. And then go ahead and
So I'm showing my screen. Now I'm
yeah, and
gonna.
it looks like we've got your desktop here. Okay, perfect. And we're going to Spelunky 2. Oh, and there it's getting closer. Oh, this looks good. Yes.
Okay.
Aaron likes your desktop.
Thanks. My brother made it for me. It's of my dog. Okay. So I was just gonna show just a normal run, just to show kind of like what I meant by like every time you die, it basically restarts. So, well, I'm gonna die already. Um,
That's very educational of you.
so I first start and here's the room. And if I die, then it restarts it. So I can't do the same seed again. So that's kind of what I'm like what the creator meant of how
Yeah,
he said he wanted you to make sure that you think about all your decisions because your decision can make or break a run. And and then it's like you can't redo that seed again. So then all of that progress is lost and you can't even try to redo that one seed. It's moving kind of choppy. But so I finished world one, level one. But if I died, then I would have to restart all the way again. And as you could see, the world's different.
nice.
And then if I show just like a seeded run real quick, I have a seed already planned. But so for a seeded run, I input the numbers and then now I'm in this one. And so I can keep on replaying the same world over and over again, getting better at it, learning how certain tricks in order to do it faster. And not only is the world the same, but all the enemies are the same and all the things happen. Like all the enemies are the same, all the traps are the same, all the items are in the same spots. And even like this one over here, there's a crate over here, and there's bombs in it. And I know that because I've played this run a couple of times. Uh, so everything's the same, and so I can know like basically I can get faster and faster. Know like, oh, I can do this thing because I know I'm gonna get these items at this point. And it can basically just make it easier for someone to do it over and over and over again. And then if I die, again, I'll just be able to restart back at that point. and it's the exact same map.
Nice.
And that's
That
basically the end of
that's
my
a great
presentation.
that's a great illustration of it. Thank you.
My mouse disappears when I'm on the game.
Yeah. Let's do a little emoji. Was there any questions? Questions or comments?
I commented earlier about when you were talking about Hero. Was it true that one of his attacks could like instantly kill you?
Uh, I believe so. Again, he's so I don't remember all his spells. He has so many. I just know a lot of people are kind of iffy about him because like some people are like, "Oh, it's RNG, so like it it's not always in his favor, you know?"
Mhm.
Uh, but
I
yeah.
think that I think that's sort of the great thing about it. It's like as a game developer, you can use it, right? And you can use it to stretch things out. We a number of years ago, we were doing these 2-hour game jams. And so we would try to make a game in 2 hours. And one of the things that you realize is that is you can't possibly consider everything. So a lot of the games ended up being really unfair. And one of my favorite games was called Don't Blow Up. And it's set up so that it can just be impossible sometimes. So you're battling against the RNG as well. And seeing people play it when they realize that that's going on, then they just get into this loop where they just keep playing it, and they're just like they're just trying to get the good RNG, and then have a good run with it. So it's like if your players are able to pick up on that sort of stuff, they can definitely use it and have a good time with it. Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Noel.